Hi, I'm Amara Jones reporting with FSTV from Netroots Nation here in Philadelphia. And this gathering of activists, both online and offline, is figuring out ways to make sure that people are able to participate in next year's election and participate in a way where we don't have an exclusion of the franchise that produced, some say, the results that we had last year. So that's why we are thrilled to be talking to Bill Cobb, who is a voting rights activist expert who's done a lot of work with the ACLU and a whole host of other places to take us through what some of the tactics might be for next year and how those might be avoided or blunted. And one of the ways in which we'll explore those is through a documentary called Rigged about voter suppression. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, of course.
So what, in terms of a voting rights expert, are you most concerned about next year in terms of the policies that are in place or could be in place that will lead to voter suppression?
Thank you for that question. The thing that concerns me the most about voting is its integrity. All over the country, millions of people's votes are not being counted. And while there are systematic ways of actually eliminating and suppressing people's votes, my fear is that they'll be successful. And so the solution for that is to get as many people who are interested in maintaining a democracy that represents one vote for one person, to actually get involved in their elections. So become a judge of elections, become whatever the title is for the people who oversee it, because my fear is that no matter what sort of technology is introduced, no matter what sort of policies are introduced, that the individuals who have a desire to make sure that they maintain political capital are going to whatever extraordinary ends that they've always gone through in this country to do so. And so when people have been violent to prevent other people from voting, obviously a policy change isn't as far as they always go. And so systems of repression are hyper resilient, and we need to be prepared for that.
But it sounds like that what you're saying is that you're actually not worried about technology or any of these other things, that you're actually worried about individuals making choices in these roles of power that will eliminate or suppress people's vote. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. So I'm interested in all of them equally. Like the effort to suppress the vote in this country is overwhelming and comes from so many different angles and spaces. And so yes, we need to hold the individuals accountable for being reputable and making sure that our election is full of integrity, but we also need to be mindful of what technology is doing, whether or not we're recording votes, whether or not we're getting hanging chads. And so a combination of all the things that touch our ability to elect representatives, to elect us in government, are the things that we have to be mindful of. And what we don't have are Americans participating as much as they need to ensure that elections by the people end up for the people, because we're not active in protecting it.
And what are the myriad techniques that are used in voter suppression are you most concerned about?
Wow, so what am I most concerned about in voter suppression? I would think that the 10 points that the movie Rigged brought up, which are all here on the t-shirt, which is the first, is to make it hard for people to register. So because the sequencing, voting is a sequencing process. You have to get registered, then you have to actually go and vote, and then you actually have to register so frequently so you're not purged from the roll. So every one of the points of voting, from the entryway all the way through to making sure that the vote that you cast actually gets counted, are all the things that we really need to concern with, nothing more than the other.
What about the new type of voter suppression that was used in the last election, which aren't only these active measures of purging the rolls and making it hard to register, closing polling places, all that stuff. You use the lack of paper ballots, which mean that people don't have a physical recording of their vote. But there's also this introduction of a technique last time, which is the self-negation of the vote. That is to say, the use of social media to misinform and to disinform various populations in the United States about candidates and policies so that they would choose to stay home. And we know that that happened actively on Facebook. There was a very active campaign to do that. What is your thinking about that and the ways that that could be counteracted, because that can be much harder, right?
Yeah, that is, it's had a profound impact on what we believe candidates are and what we believe they'll do. I think back to Philadelphia, and in that cycle, there was never a Green Party presence in the city. but they leverage technology, and all of a sudden a whole party that's never been active in the city has emerged on people, and people select a third-party candidate. And so that is that active measure. We haven't put the things in place as a country and as a government to prevent it from happening. And so one of the ways we can counter that is to get people to actually go and see candidates face to face and to do their own investigation about. So we're organizations all through Netroots are doing things like scorecards and report cards, but now we need to proactively think about how technology is going to be leveraged to hurt us, and we need to come up with active ways to proactively determine how we can leverage technology to make sure that we get real messages to real people. But with the way technology is being used and the way it can be manipulated, it's not the best way of actually selecting a leader. Like, because our leaders in our community serve us, we're required as citizens to have a relationship with them and hold them accountable, not just through technical means, but actually to have a relationship so we can contribute to what they're doing when they make choices for us.
You know, there's a lot of discussion about whether or not these techniques led to the election of Donald Trump. Of course, Jimmy Carter, former president of the United States, said that he believes that they did, and said that his presidency is illegitimate as a result, point blank. So with that as the backdrop, I'm wondering, do you think that we are ready for to counteract the full range of voter suppression that might come up this year?
Do I think that we're ready to counteract the full? I don't. I believe that, I agree. I believe that that election is stolen. It is common practice in this country to steal elections, from the lowest levels of office all the way down to the highest. And no, we're not ready. We haven't taken the steps and measures as a government to do so, but the people always are the deciding factor at the end.
Yes.
And so creating movies like Rigged and other things where we can expose to people what are happening, and then we can touch the hearts and minds of those individuals to get them to realize that their liberties are not free. It actually requires for you to be actively participating in this democracy, and that is maybe even serving yourself. Until people determine that we want to actually hold up our democracy and make it work, it won't. And we have a lot of work to do in getting all of us to realize what our responsibility is in terms of being Americans or people who are living in this country, where we have a lot more liberties and a lot more civil liberties and freedoms than so many people across the world. And that takes all of us doing something actively on a regular basis.
What are you most hopeful about?
I'm hopeful about the way in which people are showing up when you do provide answers and solutions and you can clearly define what problems are. I'm hopeful about the human spirit. I'm hopeful about the fact that we are still here in spite of all the things that have been done to remove people from their capacity to choose their political leaders. And so I'm hopeful that the thing that we've always done, which is survive, live, and thrive, is what's going to manifest itself as we make the contributions to make that happen.
Well, there's nothing more important in an election than voting rights, and that's essential to a democracy.
Yep.
So we thank you for taking the time to highlight these really crucial issues that go to the very heart of who we are as a country, and wish you all the best in helping to protect democracy.
Well, thank you, and I wish all of us the best.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's been amazing.
Thank you.